Kelly's attorneys are asking President Donald Trump to release their client immediately, saying prison officials have hired an inmate to murder him.
The artist, whose legal name is Robert Sylvester Kelly, was rushed to the hospital last week after allegedly overdosing on sleep and anxiety medications given to him by prison staff.
Quit playing. I didn't do this stuff. This is not me. I'm fighting for my life. Y'all killing me with this. I gave y'all 30 years of my career.
Robert.
30 years of my career.
Cops are trying to end R. Kelly's life in prison. At least that's what he and his lawyer are alleging in a lawsuit appealing for the judge to get R. Kelly out of prison. But not only do they accuse the feds of hiring a dude to stab Kelly, they also claim that they've been poisoning the man.
And that discussions have been had about poison in the food hall, about poison in the commissary. Discussions with Mr. Stein have been had about stabbings. These are the kinds of methods that have been discussed.
Now, off the back of these allegations, R. Kelly and his lawyers aren't asking for him to be transferred to another facility. They want him out of prison altogether. According to Kelly's lawyers, the feds are trying to kill the man because he got information the government don't want coming out.
Reason is that Mr. Kelly was about to expose some facts that would be extremely inflammatory and damaging to the Bureau of Prisons and the Department of Justice.
And on top of all of that, this whole case may be uncovering a darker truth about the feds and prison officials, because R. Kelly's lawyer also states that the government has been hiring criminals to take out certain prisoners for years now.
And he told us in extraordinary detail that this is not the first instance, that this happens all the time, that the Aryan Brotherhood has been directed to commit murders and beatings at the behest of prison officials for years.
The R. Kelly situation has been wild from the very beginning. In case you forgot, in 2021, he was sentenced to 30 years in prison on 1 count of racketeering and 8 counts of sex trafficking. Not long after that, he was sentenced to 20 years for child pornography and soliciting minors for sex. Earlier this year, R. Kelly tried to appeal those charges and got slapped back.
A federal appeals court upholds disgraced singer R. Kelly's convictions as well as a 30-year prison term. The Second Circuit Court of Appeals in Manhattan rejected Kelly's several arguments, including that he was falsely charged with racketeering, a charge most commonly used in criminal organization cases.
And in spite of how crazy these claims may seem, R. Kelly might have some legs to stand on, or at least some history, because this ain't the first time that he's been attacked inside of prison.
R. Kelly was attacked behind bars. The singer's lawyer says Kelly was targeted by a fellow inmate at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in downtown Chicago. Attorney Steve Greenberg tells us he is not sure how badly Kelly was hurt and that Kelly has not called him.
In 2020, when R. Kelly was arrested and awaiting trial, another inmate apparently walked into his cell and jumped whilst he was on his bed. He got bruised up a little, but sources claimed it was nothing serious. However, R. Kelly was later moved into solitary confinement for his own safety.
Attorneys for R. Kelly confirmed the singer is now in solitary confinement in a downtown federal prison after an altercation earlier this week. They say he was moved there for his own protection, not as punishment. The singer's lawyer says that Kelly was targeted by a fellow inmate at the Metropolitan Correctional Center. The R&B star is in federal lockup, awaiting multiple trials on dozens of sex crime charges.
The guy who attacked R. Kelly was a member of the Latin Kings gang named Jeremiah Farmer. It was unclear who broke up the fight, but sources claim the attack on that occasion was down to frustration over the prison being on lockdown. You see, because of how high profile R. Kelly was prior to being shoved into solitary, other inmates felt the whole place was revolving around him a little too much. When R. Kelly had visitors, all other 6,000 inmates had to be locked in their cells before Kelly could come out. On top of that, there were usually R. Kelly fans just outside the prison protesting, and whenever the protest starts, the prison goes into lockdown. So Jeremiah's attack was allegedly just an outburst of frustration and nothing else. But this time around, R. Kelly and his lawyer are sure there's a coordinated attempt on his life by the feds and prison staff. R. Kelly even did a jail call interview with Vlad in November 2023, where he detailed how he was being mistreated.
I had an operation on my Achilles, and it had been stretched. And I ended up having a cast on. getting a cast put on my ankle. And it was supposed to come off in 2 weeks. And it didn't come off for 2 months. And as a matter of fact, I've complained about it. It hadn't come off. So I ended up taking a walking cane, as I told everybody, and I ended up beating the cast off myself.
Kelly also spoke about how he wanted to go to therapy, but he couldn't because he had blood clots in his legs, and he was the one who had to tell the doctors about it instead of the other way around. R. Kelly is convinced this is all part of the plan to get rid of him because of the information he has on the corrupt officers who handled his case. He says an officer illegally accessed his information multiple times during the trial.
Noise. A BOP, Federal Disciplinary Hearing Officer, which is like the judge in the Bureau of Prisons. She's a judge.
Vlad TV.
She was illegally accessing my federal restricted law enforcement information. My jail records, meaning my recorded phone calls and my emails. Not only did the officer illegally access my restricted information, but she accessed it 153 different times during the course of 6 months while I was being detained here.
This information was discovered through a search warrant, yet the officer was never prosecuted or even cross-examined. In fact, according to Kelly, this BOP officer remained anonymous till this day, with Kelly and his lawyer not even given the name of the officer for any further investigation. The officer in question tore pages out of Kelly's jail records and allegedly even sent the classified information into her private email account.
She tore off every corner of each page where the dates and times would be, and illegally sent my jail records to her own personal Gmail account. This is all according to the search warrant.
Kelly also says that the BOP agent then proceeded to share those jail records with Tasha K., the blogger. And as we all know, Tasha K. leaked those files into the public. These files included call recordings between R. Kelly and his second girlfriend, which had huge ramifications in his trial, which of course ended with a guilty verdict and a 30-year prison sentence.
The blogger Tasha K. stated out of her own mouth on her Unwind with Tasha K. YouTube blog that she shared that restricted information with my girlfriend at the time, who after seeing that information got very, very mad at me to the point she was scorned and became the government's main star witness in my New York case, testifying against me.
According to R. Kelly, this constituted witness tampering, and that's illegal. So even up until right now, R. Kelly is still pursuing a civil suit against the government, against the unnamed BOP officer, and against Tasha K. Because for R. Kelly, that's what's going to represent justice.
And these are crimes that affected my trial. They affected my life. They affected my case. You cannot witness tamper. I didn't even get bond. I don't even have a criminal background, and I didn't even get a bond. Why? Because they said I was going to witness tamper. But while I'm sitting in jail, they were witness tampering.
All this has led to the recent emergency filing from R. Kelly's legal team for his immediate release. They said a member of the Aryan Brotherhood was put onto R. Kelly by the feds to get him taken out.
I think that's the key here. These are not R. Kelly's allegations. These are the allegations being made by Michael Glenn Stein, who's the person who says that he was solicited to kill Robert and sent to Butner to do it.
If you know anything about the Aryan Brotherhood, then you know an incarcerated member would have been happy to do the deed for free. However, R. Kelly's legal team also claimed that the feds promised to let him out of prison entirely if he did the task.
Benefit, what do they get?
It depends on the circumstances, but Mr. Stein says is oftentimes what they get is the ability to traffic narcotics freely throughout the facility. What they get is the ability not to be searched. But in this instance, what Mr. Stein has clearly said he gets is the opportunity to be free. I mean, they have said to Mr. Stein, according to him, they have said that if he is to do this, he has a terminal cancer patient, he's going to die in the near future. That's a fact. And they have said that he will be transferred and he'll get the opportunity to walk away. And Michael Glenn Stein has a history of escaping from the Bureau of Prisons. He escaped previously. That's why he spent so long at the ADX Supermax in Florence. And all of a sudden, he was moved to this relatively low security facility at Butner and put near R. Kelly. That's a fact.
So that's obviously a huge deal if true. Not only that, the feds may be striking up deals with criminals to take out other inmates, but that in this specific case, they shouted out a cancer patient who had nothing to lose and promised him freedom, which is wild. Now, Kelly's lawyer also seemed to imply that Michael Stein has done these types of execution deals with the government before. So with that in mind, the one thing nobody seems to understand is why Stein, who is allegedly a member of the Aryan Brotherhood, decided not to take out R. Kelly and instead chose to cooperate. Maybe he a fan of R. Kelly's music, or maybe the cancer is getting to him. Either way, if any of this is true, then in theory, Kelly's life should be safe, since the threat has been neutralized. But R. Kelly's lawyers, they claim they're just going to send another assassin in his place.
Is that if the threat is over, meaning the man allegedly solicited to kill R. Kelly has come clean and said, I won't do it, I'm going to sing like a canary instead, where's the threat?
The threat is the other members of the Aryan Brotherhood, another one of which has been identified, who has been asked to carry out what Mike Stein has been unwilling to do.
He also claims that Kelly's cellmate was offered reduced jail time to steal personal data of R. Kelly and push it through to the U.S. attorney. So now they apparently have testimonies from first-hand participants that the government conspired to leak R. Kelly's information.
That's in one piece of evidence we've already presented in the form of a signed declaration from Keyshawn Mogadamudi, Robert's former cellmate. And what he describes is having been solicited by prosecutors who are offering him a reduced sentence in exchange for stealing Mr. Kelly's privileged attorney-client correspondence, funneling it through an identified Bureau of Prisons officer, a corrupt officer, and then that was provided to the U.S. Attorney's Office. This man has made a statement, and both he and Mr. Stein are making statements that are absolutely not in their own personal interest, and yet they've done it anyway.
The plot just keeps getting thicker and thicker. Not even a week later, more drama surrounded R. Kelly as he allegedly overdosed on his medication after the prison staff deliberately gave him too much of it. According to court filings submitted by R. Kelly's legal team, he was forcibly put in solitary confinement on June 10th. On June 12th, they allege that Kelly was provided with an overdose quantity of medication compared to his normal anxiety and sleep medication dosages, leading to his hospitalization. Friday, June 13th, his lawyer said he started to see black spots in his vision. Mr. Kelly tried to get up but fell to the ground. He crawled to the door of the cell and lost consciousness. The updated motion also stated that R. Kelly was due to receive surgery for blood clots at the Duke University Hospital. But before it could even start, armed officers came into his hospital room, removed him from the premises, and returned him to jail.
Appreciate the opportunity to be able to come on and talk about it. In terms of proof, the most powerful piece of proof I can provide is the sworn statement of the man who says that he was solicited to kill R. Kelly. Michael Glenn Stein has provided us with a full declaration signed, and he's given his willingness to sit down for a polygraph examination administered by either side to testify in court. He has given us the details of who solicited him and when. And I think that's the key here. These are not R. Kelly's allegations. These are the allegations being made by Michael Glenn Stein.
Given all this activity went down just days after R. Kelly filed the emergency motion to get taken out of prison, the claims don't seem as fanciful and theatrical as the government said it was originally. Off the back of this alleged attack, Kelly's attorney is even trying to get Donald Trump involved to grant his client a presidential pardon.
Absolutely. We're going to seek every opportunity to, one, make sure that Robert Kelly doesn't get killed, and number two, to see that he is freed based on what we believe to be and will prove to be a corrupt prosecution, the kind of which President Trump has promised to eradicate.
As mentioned before, the response from the Bureau of Prisons and the government at large was to dismiss the motion entirely. They accuse R. Kelly and his lawyer of not using proper procedure themselves, citing the fact that they filed their motion in the wrong court and using the wrong kind of case. Not to mention that, although Kelly's team claimed to have evidence on their side, most of their case is propped up by the testimonies of convicted felons. In court, it could literally be the word of a sex trafficking murderer against the word of the Bureau of prison's officers, and that can only go one way. In addition to that, the feds also claim that R. Kelly's motion makes a quote-unquote mockery of the harm suffered by his victims, given Kelly received separate 30-year and 20-year sentences by two separate courts. The notion of releasing him home is considered nothing but a fairy tale at this point in time. So what do you believe? Do you believe R. Kelly's claims that the feds are trying to end his life? Or are you on the feds' side and want to see R. Kelly rot in jail? Let me know in the comments.